Okay, welcome to the second session of the Croatian National Tripartite event. And we heard a lot of talks in the first session about strategies, policies, a lot of plans for the future when it comes to EOSC and open science. But in this second session, we'll focus more on the researchers and their perspective, their experience with open science and EOSC. So our first speaker comes from Ruđer Bošković Institute, Antica Čulina. She's a senior researcher associate at Ruđer Bošković Institute, and she contributes to Open Science Initiative, Go Fair Discovery UNESCO Open Science RDA. So she will talk a little bit about the researchers' perspective on open science. So please.
Well, thank you.
And just one.
Yes.
Please keep strict to time limit because we don't want to miss much. Yeah.
Okay. So it's really nice to be here in front of all of you to represent researchers' perspective on open science. And where do I change slides? Why don't I change next? Oh, so I'm evolutionary ecologist by training, but over time I started to work on the interface of open science and ecology. And today I'll present part of my journey, but also talk about several aspects of open science. And for each of these, I will say what I think researchers need and how to best support them. So for me, it all started with a meta-analysis. And for meta-analysis, that was part of my PhD, you have to carefully read scientific papers. And that was the first time that I really carefully read a lot of papers to extract some information I needed for this meta-analysis. But what happened that values, for example, reported in the paper's text and in the figure wouldn't match. There was a lot of missing information, for example, sample size of the study, and related to that, often methodology and data analysis were not properly described. So still, to be able to use these studies, I wanted to check the raw data so I can calculate things myself. But as you can imagine, I couldn't email a lot of authors of the papers. Emails bounced back, they were not replied. And for those that I got replies, more than half of them said, well, I can't tell you, I don't know where this data was. And for me, that was a turning point in my career, because by then I thought science is perfect. After this point, I thought, well, there is a lot of things we can do much better. And I'm ecologist, so I really care about life on Earth, and how we try to understand life of Earth on Earth is by observing. And these observations are inevitably just a snapshot of time and space. And based on these snapshots, we're trying to do important things like, mitigate climate change or biodiversity loss. And then if you impose all of these imperfeccies in the research system and publishing system upon these partial data we anyway can collect, what information are we getting? Is this information correct? How powerful is it to solve many issues that we face? And that's when I moved to the Netherlands to lead a project on use of open data in ecological meta-analysis. And this is my first example where we tried to enable ecologists to use open data, because by that point open data was increasing but nobody was using them. And we collaborated with 2 computer scientists and a librarian and then ecologist. And I want to present here how nice it is in open science that it's a truly multidisciplinary effort. So what we did, we collected something we call aggregators. So these are places you can use to search for data sets in one interface, the same as you use Web of Science to search for scientific papers. And we created this resource catalog for ecological community and some guidelines on how to use these aggregators to find data sets of interest. And we also conducted a case study. This is my PhD student. It's evolutionary ecology question. But what I want to show you here, that we used all of these different aggregators. Is there a pointer? Well, loudly. So these, for example, 18 data sets, all of them were detected by same 6 aggregators. But then some data sets like these two were detected but by only one aggregator. So what I want to show you here is very difficult to find data sets. You have to really spend a lot of effort. We spend days and days and months. And in this paper, we discuss how this system of data discovery is really not perfect. It should be improved. So what researchers need, they need help navigating data landscape. They don't know it even exists. But we need much improved infrastructure. So first, it has to have better user interface. Second, there is lack of interoperability, as discussed already, and really low recall and low precision. So you get many data sets there that are related to your research search string, but are really irrelevant. And there is no way to properly kind of select better search strategy because things are just not really good. And finally, researchers need better understanding of these licenses. They're often scared of using data because they might be doing something wrong. My next question was, okay, we found open data, but can we use open data? And we can't. So in our case, for that case study, we detected more than 100 data sets that were useful for us. This is by taxonomic group. But when we tried to use them, the number got really reduced because data are extremely low quality in open data repositories. And just as an anecdote, which I found interesting, is that we emailed all the people whose data we analyzed just to check, if we made some wrong assumptions. Doesn't matter because in ecology everything is system specific. And responses we got from them were from, we collected more data sets, we want more data, to, this is to the student, you were not even born when I started to collect this data. How do you dare to use my, openly available data sets? My second case study is in microbiology. So we wanted to answer also really important question about these methanotrophs. They are doing methane oxidation, so they are sinks of methane, important greenhouse gas on Earth. So we needed open metagenome data, which are ample. So we found many in open metagenome databases, so this was amazing. But then we needed some basic environmental data that are always collected with soils. However, most of these data sets did not have these other data present. And even when they did, this is just an example of nitrogen, so they provide nitrogen without any indication of what units they used. So we could not do this study. And my point here is there are databases of, for example, these genomes, and we just lack simple, small, additional information to make these data sets much more valuable for science. So why do we lack that? And that brings me to fair data, which I'm sure I don't have to explain here. I asked on a very random Twitter survey what researchers think is more important for scientific progress, open or fair data, and they said fair data. Majority responded fair data. But when asked what's easier to achieve, they said open data, because truly you can put the data somewhere in a repository, but can you use it? Well, as I showed in our examples, majority you really can't. And this is an example from my research community. It's about birds. So I started this database of fair data for evolutionary ecology studies. These are studies of birds that are individually marked, and much what we know about evolution in wild comes from these studies. So I don't know how to run that graph, but it shows for this one population the change of numbers, and you can study many things by using these types of data. For example, what populations and why can adopt to climate change or can't. But in order to make this data fair and hopefully open, I had to talk to researchers who don't want their long collected data to be open, most of them. They do want their data to be used, and they do want to use others' data. And they would love to have a common standard, but they don't have capacity, as previously mentioned, to make this data fair. And this is how we constructed our workflow for this SpyBirds database. We get data from the researchers. We call that primary data. And then our team creates pipelines that make this data fair. And we put that in database. We attach metadata, and then you can use metadata to search for data sets. This goes to a data owner who has to approve the data use in most of the cases. More and more people, I have to say, proudly want to make their data fully open. And these are usually granted, so we send data in the standard format to the data user. And this is just one example of something called long tail of science. So these are many research groups that are collecting each quite small data set in size, but cumulatively it's a lot of data sets. And these type of data are very difficult to derive to fair or have a common standard, because every single group, really in our case of 130 researchers, they all have different ways of managing data. So for every population we have to create specific pipeline. And we also organize this Long Tail for Science Fair Data workshop, where we even had some cool people attending. And we tried to basically discuss how to make higher level interoperability between several databases that work with similar but not same type of data to, enable higher scale and faster science. So what researchers need, they really need support to create fair data, really, really, really. And they need recognition to make their data fair. And, understanding why then they don't want to make data open. When I started to work on open science, I was like, well, make your data open. But while talking to all of these researchers, I realized it's actually not maybe the most easy, the best way or the fairest way. I'll quickly jump now to another important part of research, and this is software, which is often neglected, but now is gaining more traction. This is extremely funny and interesting blog by Daniel Bolchnik, who basically wrote how they discovered post-publication that one single line, or even like less than a line of code, was incorrect, which completely changed results of their published study. And he asks, why don't we review code as a part of peer review process? Because code is extremely important. It helps to understand the analysis, evaluate conclusions of the study, reuse it. I reused other people's code. It definitely saved me some months of work. And they increase trust in science. And I think it was already mentioned, this replicability and reproducibility. And I just quickly go through that because I think it's extremely important. So replicable means that you collect new data on the same research question, use roughly the same methods. You should get the same result if the previous one was close to truth. However, replicability is almost never achieved. And it's not only methodology, but it's also because systems are very complex. So there are many reasons why something might not be replicable. However, reproducibility is easy. That means you use the same data and you use the same code, and then you really have to get the same result. So we try to assess reproducibility in ecology by assessing more than about 500 articles from journals with code sharing policy. And surprise, surprise, in those journals, more than 73% of papers don't share their code. And then some don't share the data, so the maximum reproducibility in our case was around 21% of articles. And these are journals with data policies and code sharing policies. So this is sad. And if we can't achieve reproducibility, which is basic, how can we ever attempt to try to replicate, so collect new data and get the same result? But it's not just us, again, who is responsible. So it's not just researchers. In this case that we had, many journals had very vague code sharing policies. They obviously don't check if policies are followed. And finally, what I find even more important, it's a carrot. So we need to change incentives. Why would I spend time to make my code nice and understandable, or my data, if I don't get anything from that? And I lose opportunity to write another scientific paper that makes some contribution to my progress as a scientist. And obviously training and some professional assistance. And I'll end up with this really sad example of wasted research. So this is all research that has been funded, conducted, but never leads to any usable information for anyone. And we estimated wasted research based on more than 10,000 studies in ecology. Around 50% is never published. Of those published, 70% have inadequate study design or analysis, so results are not trustable. And those who are published, they often misreport their results, so you don't have the full information. So this leads us to the estimated waste of 82 to 89%. So let this sink in. You fund research, and this is how much never gets any benefit to anyone, maybe even like worse, maybe some results are wrong. And this is very close to the only other existing estimate of waste, and that's in medicine, where the waste is 85%. And I can't test this, but my hypothesis is that's because we are in the same social system of science that has certain incentives that are wrong, and researchers are strained between those incentives and, you know, good research that is robust and valid. You want to take a photo? Here, it's also in our paper. Yeah, because I'm pressured for time. And this is what I think also goes wrong, because what we currently have is this top of the pyramid, is policies. Everybody puts policies, policies, policies. And this is a nice pyramid from Brian Noshek, who started Center for Open Science. And what he says, you know, we first have to make it possible, then we have to make it easy, then we have to make it normative, incentivize it, and only then you can put a policy on it. Because as I showed in my case, we have policies for data, we have policies for code, but what do we have from that? Well, really nothing, because this bottom of the pyramid is really missing. And I invite you, if you can, attend our virtual symposia on this Meta Science conference on 17th of April. Email me, we still don't have sign-up link, but here we are going to discuss how can open science help to reduce or remove that huge research waste. And we invited publishers and scientists and funders of science, because it's a common effort. You want to sign up? Okay. So in summary, what researchers need are bridges between these like perfect open science things that everybody here talks about and their real research world. And these are really missing. So I don't know how many real people doing research are here. It's me. Who else? 2 of us. And you know, we are 3. So this is like my common experience with open science events. You have all these open science people talking about it, but you know, where are real researchers? Well, it's 3 of us. They need to understand why open practices are important for them and for science. They need simple but sufficient solutions, because I don't want to spend days and days making my data fair, but I want to contribute to it. They need opportunity to learn more curricula on open science, obviously support, so professionals who are going to assist them in making their things open, and recognition. And this is all money, so we need money. We need money to do open science. We need money to do research on open science practices. This is what I'm trying to do. Try to really scientifically prove that things work or don't work. And this is called meta science. But what I often get when I apply for grants, they say, well, this is not science. So you can't get money for that. So most of the money I got from open science research was because I applied for something else, which is evolutionary ecology, and then I mingled in some open science work into that. But I would like to apply for meta science project and get money for it, because it is science. And true recognition of multidisciplinarity. Everybody talks about, we all appreciate multidisciplinary research, but then you get reviews and you see, well, it's not really appreciated, it's confusing. So what we have, in conclusion, we can have bad ingredients of science, like the first picture here, so, you know, badly corrected data or analytical codes, or we can have nice ones. And then we try, open science tries to first make these basic ingredients nice, and it tries to make a nice cake of them. Nice cake is a good science that has a large impact and everybody would like to use. But even having good ingredients doesn't mean you're going to make a good science. So I usually make a cake like this one up, but for my science, I try to make this lower cake, so good cake. And that's all from me. I would like to thank all the people that I already had on slides who contributed to the research I presented, and also all these initiatives that I'm part of, and they all relate to open science. And feel free to get in touch. I'm really happy to talk to everybody about what they think about these efforts and how to make them better. And as I said, open science is really multidisciplinary endeavor, and we have to try to keep it as such. Questions I'll later, I guess.
Yeah. No questions. No time. Thank you very much, Antica, for this very inspiring presentation. You mentioned a lot of things here, but I will just stress one that was already mentioned by Giorgio, and that is data literacy as one of big topics with EOSC and data stewardships. Which brings me to our next presenters, who are also coming from Ruđer Bošković Institute. Sanja Jurković and Laura Kačaja, who will talk about data stewardship and what they are doing at Ruđer Bošković Institute. So I would say this is a continuation, basically, on the previous presentation. Antica will also be joining us in the third session in the panel. So if you want to stay and listen, I'm sure it will be a very interesting panel. So please.
Can you hear me? Okay. So hello, my name is Sanja. Thank you for inviting us to speak today. I am here with my colleagues from Center for Scientific Information from the Ruđer Bošković Institute, and we are here to tell you a little something about our data stewardship path. So Center for Scientific Information has always been on the front lines of open science movement from its very beginnings, promoting open access to research results, educating librarians, training researchers, supporting them in their activities, and trying to make overall research environment a better place for them to evolve. Our past efforts in the research data management can be described as somewhat of a guerrilla RDM support, because we are just a small team within a large institute with a diverse set of research subjects and methodologies on the one side, and constant and rapid change in science ecosystem on the other side. Through the years, researchers' needs continuously increased, which required a constant upgrade of our infrastructure, as well as more training and support activities in the RDM domain as a whole. Here we have sort of a visual representation of how the infrastructure and our services developed through the years, and with this we wanted to show you in detail how the RBI data stewardship progressed over the last few years. We have started our RDM endeavor with platform with creating a file storage for our institution for sharing documentation and research data. We called it Moj oblak. It was based on own cloud open source platform, which was later forked as Nextcloud. It was intended for institutional use only, and its primary purpose was creating a storage platform for sharing documents and research data within the project's team, but was very shortly accepted as a general purpose service used by the whole RBI employees, researchers, and staff. We also made it scalable by enabling simple addition or removal of the storage capacity depending on the current project's needs and resources. Following the changes in the global scientific environment, our institutional repository, FULIR, extended with the dataset application profile, and which made it possible to publish datasets. FULIR is an e-prints-based service, initially used as a scientific article self-archiving platform, which we upgraded to making possible dataset deposition. These changes and activities were partly encouraged by the launch of the Open Research Data Pilot by the European Commission and its demands for publishing primary data produced through the European Commission funded research, as well as some publishers requiring the accessibility of the primary or raw data during the review process. Then in 2017, DABAR established two more working groups, one for research data, which we were a part of from the very start, and a year later, DABAR implements metadata application profile for datasets storage and self-archiving, which made possible data deposition for all of their included repositories, which is like many, many institutional repositories in Croatia.
And moving to some recent years, we have, because we collaborated with the DABAR team so good, we decided in 2021 to start a research data repository on DABAR platform. We called it Fulir Data. Fulir Data gathers and permanently stores and allows open access on primary data. Researchers deposit their data sets by themselves in form of self-archiving, of course with our help, because they sometimes need help with the description of metadata and everything else. And also every data set is assigned with a permanent identifier for citation purposes. We have one great example. We had one of our researchers came to us to ask us for help where to publish his data before submitting an article. So after short consultations, he opted for institutional repository, data repository. And then after a while, upon publication, he was pleasantly surprised how his data is being cited and downloaded frequently. And even though before he was always like, oh, who would use my data? I don't really know who would use my data and why anybody would need it. So in the same year, moving next, in the same year, we split Moj Oblak service into two services because of researchers' need for data storage. Of course, they got bigger. So we started Box-CRB, which is, as it says, cloud service for data storage and sharing data for the duration of the research project. At the moment, Box-CRB is 20 terabytes big. And the data usage depends from project to project, meaning that the one project would use 10 gigabytes, like that little, and the other would be measured in terabytes, for example. Also, what is available on Box-CRB is you can use some collaborative tools. For example, you can share spreadsheets. Also, additionally, it can be shared with external researchers. So there was a need for the researchers to share their data with the external researchers that are outside of AI-EDU service system, creation system, okay, moving. And now we have 2022. Which changed doing data stewardship at the Ruđer Bošković Institute because Creation Science Foundation introduced a mandatory DMP for the projects they fund. So it changed over the night, and even though the first year, 2022, was a pilot year, the news really spread like wildfire. Like, it was really crazy, and suddenly researchers started coming to us, needing our help in filling out the DMP document, in trying, in needing our help to explain them what is needed to be written in it. On that. We, in 2022, we organized together with Srce and with the Creation Science Foundation first national webinar on the topic, on HR-OOZ DMP, where we explained various parts of the new document and also why is it important for scientific process. Which leads us to this year. Actually, we started with Argos also in joint forces with Creation Science Foundation. We started translating Argos, which is a data management plant tool in Croatian language, and trying to make it as a tool for Croatian researchers in doing, in easier filling out the DMPs. And make it, and what is the most important, Argos can, from Argos you can download your DMP once it's finished in Word document or PDF, and also it makes it machine readable. Yes, And to wrap this up, we have, just to show you what we do on the education and training and support path. We do training through different seminars and workshops and webinars, one I already mentioned. And we also do workshops with our researchers on smaller scales where we talk to them about filling out DMP, choosing a repository, choosing licenses, and so on. And also we support, we do support in individual counseling where we provide a planning in technical or financial resources for research data management. And also we provide help in dataset publishing, including help with documenting the data or metadata description. We had also one project on the Institute where we, in collaboration with project leader and project staff, wrote the entire DMP for them and also help them with acquisition and implementation of the entire infrastructure. And what it says, last but not least, we are building our own skills by participating in open science projects, in webinars or online courses, and trying our best in this guerrilla RDM system. That's it. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this insight into what Ruđer Bošković is doing. Our next speaker is not from Ruđer Bošković Institute, but from Faculty of Science, Social Sciences and Humanities, University of Zagreb. Marijana Glavica, she works there part-time as assistant librarian and part-time as acting head of the Croatian Social Science Data Archive. She has collaborated a lot with Consortium of European Social Science Data Archives, or CESDA-ERIC, and its members service provider. And she currently serves as a national representative in CESDA-ERIC Service Provider Forum, and she will tell us a little bit about CROSDA's plans and challenges. Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Slaven, very much. Thank you, organizers, for inviting me. I guess my role here would be not just to present our service, but also to hear a voice of or perspective of research infrastructures. And I was probably invited because CROSDA, which is part of CESDA-ERIC, as Slaven said, is actually data-intensive infrastructure. So just for the start, for introduction, I would just like to say that there are other infrastructures, research infrastructures, which are currently active in Croatia. So to be fair to them, I will just state their names here. I don't have them on slides, but I realized that it would be fair to introduce them also to you. So one is SHARE-ERIC, which is Survey of Health, Aging and Retirement in Europe. Another one is DARIA-ERIC, which is Digital Research Infrastructure for the Arts and Humanities. The next one is CERIC-ERIC, which is Central European Research Infrastructure Consortium. And then we have CLARIN-ERIC, which is Common Language Resources and Technology Infrastructure for Humanities and Social Sciences. Then we have European Social Survey, it's also ERIC, all of them are ERICs basically. Then we have CESDA-ERIC, yeah, I'm reading from the ministry web pages where we are all listed. And then we have EATRIS-ERIC, which is European Infrastructure for Translational Medicine. And that's all for now. Hopefully with new developments and the new plan for research infrastructure, we will have more. So let me now present our service, which is CROSDA, which stands for Croatian Social Science Data Archive. We currently serve as a national public research infrastructure for social sciences, and we are nominated by the ministry to serve as a service provider, as we call it, for CESDA ERIC. Actually, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences of University of Zagreb was nominated as a national, so-called national coordinating institution, and the national representative of the whole infrastructure for Croatia is, of course, Ministry of Science and Education, because this is how the things work in research infrastructures. You have to have a ministry or a national representative to be a member. So about our services, here I will not read from the slide, but I will refer to what Antica was saying about quality of data. So our main purpose is actually to create a repository where data are curated to the maximum level. So to prepare data which are full with documentation, so which are ready for reuse in the moment when you access them. One important thing in social sciences is that we deal with data about people. So we deal with data which can be which can disclose personal information, so we have to be very careful about this. So that's why we put focus on enabling. We have several access levels for this data, and so not all our licenses are open, but we have also restricted access to data. Because of all these disclosure risks that they are there. So you might have heard about open as possible, restricted as necessary. We are here to provide this restricted as necessary part of open story. So our core services is to make this data reusable and to prepare them for long-term preservation, but also to refer what Antica was saying, because of this reproducibility crisis, we also started to work with, to reach out to journals and to work on them with, to develop data sharing policies. This is especially interesting for us because one of the social sciences is psychology, and as you might know, this reproducibility crisis has actually started in psychology. Brian Nosek is psychologist, so we are very familiar with that, and so yeah, we are trying to do this something about it. So, well, CESDA, what is CESDA in a nutshell? So it's a consortium of European social science data archive. Basically, it's an organization that brings together social science data archives across Europe. So these are members of countries are members, so these are members of CESDA, and one interesting thing from this slide is that CESDA was actually established in 1976, so it was a long time ago. CESDA members knew about the value of sharing data for a long time. First archives were established more than 50 years ago, so before this 1976. So this is the time when curation of social science data actually started. CESDA, what is CESDA in this broader context? Is here important thing here for this context, for EOS context, is that CESDA is already heavily involved in building EOSC. Recently, CESDA was coordinating one big European project which was building social science and humanities open science cloud. So this was a coordination, and you can see here on the slide several other projects in which CESDA was involved. CESDA by itself, by internal organization, is operating under four pillars. So we are dealing with training, of course, training, more training, that's important. So another pillar is tools, because we all need tools to share data, widening and outreach, because for our community is important that we grow in numbers, and one important pillar is trust, because we deal with sometimes with sensitive data, so this is very important for us. So the next slide is briefly about services that CESDA is offering and to different stakeholders. But lots of the services that CESDA is offering is basically for us service providers for national data archives. So we have a chance to exchange knowledge and build some tools together. And now for the main topic of my presentation, it's plans and challenges. I made just a selection of topics that I want to point out here. There are many things more that we are currently doing and plan to do. One very, very important topic, of course, is data acquisition, archiving, and publishing data. Currently, we have 11 datasets curated and published. 9 are currently in queue, which means that this 11 was for the past 2 or 3 years, and now suddenly 9 in queue. This means that we are growing in popularity and that researchers are slowly coming to us. We have data, as we are national service, we have data from different institutions, currently from 2 major social science institutes in Croatia, and of course from our hosting institution, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, but also from political science. So the main challenges are, as this was already mentioned in previous presentations, we have to deal with ethical and legal issues because of this sensitive nature of our data. There is a lack of data sharing culture, but in Croatia, as I said before, in social sciences in Europe and in the rest of the world, there is this sharing culture among social scientists, but in Croatia we are still getting there. And again, non-existing incentives for researchers, but we are all here to improve that. And one more point that is not on my slide, but it was mentioned already also here, is this, that it's an effort to archive, to publish data in a way that it is reusable. So what we can do about this from our perspective, it's again education and more education, individual consultations, not just on data management, but on the publishing data itself, on how to make the data fair if you want. And we also promote secondary data use. And just recently we had several requests from students because they used our data sets in their courses. And also but one assistant which is employed at the Croatian Social Science Data Archive will do research on data sharing predictors among Croatian social science researchers. So through that, I hope we can also have some input into policies. And on the question of researchers, what I didn't mention is that CESDA ERIC is an interesting infrastructure because myself, I'm not a researcher, but we have one research assistant in our archives so he is a doctoral student now, but he is in research, and the whole community says that Eric is a mixture of researchers and information professionals and even IT professionals. So that's very interesting community, at least for me. So another topic is maintaining data catalog and of course metadata. Our plan is, of course, because we have to do it as a service provider, is to include our metadata in SESDA central data catalog. So there are several ways to do this. The tool which we are using is of course not perfect, but it is best that we have for now. It's a Dataverse. Some of you probably heard about Dataverse. And we are planning as a community, as a SESDA community, to initiate Dataverse for SESDA improvement project, because we want to have our perfect support for metadata, because in social sciences we already have standards for metadata. It's very old standard, and it's highly used in our communities. There is a huge interest from our service provider to be included in that project, because well, we need tools. Also, we are developing, this thesaurus is already developed, but we as CROSDA need to translate this thesaurus in Croatian language. And again, about metadata, we need to create improvements in already published data. And what is our future goal is to create a so-called question bank, which is a new level of metadata, because then because most of the social sciences are producing service, so it's very interesting to search by questions, not just by, we call it study description, not just by author description, etc., but also by questions. So when we have good metadata, then we can do things like that. And this is already implemented in our catalog, in our publishing tool. So yeah, we can create nice graphs. And to the topic of FAIR, we are not yet there, but we are moving towards it. To be fair, it's not just enough that we have a nice metadata, which we are very strong in, but it's also important that we have a tool that is supporting fair sharing of data, and this is a Fuji test of one of our data sets. It's not bad, but we must improve on that also. Core Trust Seal of certification is our next goal. We have to apply for this certificate. We already received support on this process. We got some positive feedbacks, but there are some challenges, of course. Continuity of service is one big, but I must say the other archives also have problems with that, because we strive for long-term preservation, so we always have to think how to maintain this service in the future. We struggle with a number of stuff. That's always the problem, and some parts of technical infrastructure we were lacking, because now we have our repository installed at our hosting institution, at our Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, but what we didn't have is remote backup. But hooray, yesterday we just heard some wonderful news that from Monday we will actually be able to use Srce service developed through HR-OOZ project. So this is virtual data center, and we were
the EOSC logo.
Yeah, almost. So yeah, I'm very happy. I was very happy yesterday to hear that this is finally here. So we are ready for Core Trust Seal. So one more thing I wanted to mention is that we are also part of building one new infrastructure for social sciences, and this is also a huge survey. It's developed currently under project Coordinate, and the infrastructure is called Guide. It's already on the S3 roadmap also. And through this project, it's very interesting for us because we will be cooperating, or we are cooperating with one of our biggest research institutes in social sciences in Croatia. And just to summarize at the end, what are our main challenges? So lack of data sharing culture, lack of incentives for data sharing for researchers, lack of staff, lack of incentives for research assistants working for research infrastructures. This is not just our problems, I've heard, because they are working, research assistants who are working for research infrastructures, they have to do all their usual work as a research assistant. They have to do their doctoral studies, and in addition, they have to look, in our case, in other people's data. So we had one case already of leaving academia. One of our research assistants left academia on the whole, and he is now employed in the private sector. So for us also, it's because we are small, we see a lot of benefit of being involved in international projects and also CESDA projects, but this is a huge burden, and we sometimes don't have enough time to work on locally relevant activities. And what I would like to see is more coordination, but we are here because of that, with other national infrastructure players. This, I think, can be improved always. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
On time. Thank you very much, Mariana, for this. I'm sure that a lot of challenges that you listed here are shared by everyone in the room, and I know that some of them will be addressed later in the next session, in the panel session, so looking forward to it. Next speaker, Dražen Koceljak, from University of Zagreb, University Computing Center, Head of Data Management Department at Srce. He coordinates and leads the development of several national infrastructures and services, including the National Repository, Infrastructure Digital Academic Archives and Repositories, or DABAR, and the Portal of Croatian Scientific and Professional Journals, Srce. He is also involved in the activities of Croatian EOSC-a and is currently involved in the EU-funded project CRAFT that we heard already. Draženko, please.
Thank you for the introduction. So today I will speak about the services that Srce provides. During the last two days, most of you had a lot of opportunities to hear about the new computing services and about the new supercomputing that came to Srce and that will be available to researchers during the next days. So I will focus more on the data services that Srce is providing. So in 2005, 2006, we started the development of the national portal of scientific and professional journals. At the moment, we have more than 500 journals included, with more than 275,000 open access papers. What we added to the possibility of a simple feature of publishing journal articles online, we added functionality of open journal system. It provides journal editors with the functionality with the support for the whole editorial process. Currently, it's used by about 10% of journals that are included in HR-OOZ. By the end of the last year, we added also a new functionality, Open Monograph Press. With that, we are providing support for the editorial process and the publishing of conference proceedings in HR-OOZ. The second service for open science that I will present is Digital Academic Archives and Repositories, DABAR. It was already mentioned here by the representative of Ministry and colleagues from Institute Ruđer Bošković. It's a national platform for digital repositories. It provides institution with a repository as a service solution. They get repository installed and maintained on their domain. Currently, about 150 institutions are using DABAR, and more than 200,000 objects are published online. What I would like to point out also there is that 48% of the objects are in open access. Those repositories provide support for storing and sharing various types of digital objects, from publications like books or book chapters or journal articles, presentations, also data sets, educational resources, and multimedia resources. The platform is FAIR enabled. We like to call it like that. It provides PID provided by National and University Library in Zagreb. It provides a search engine on the repository page. It provides a central search engine on DABAR page. It includes the data in other services like OpenAir and Google Scholar. It's interconnected with various other elements of creation and European information systems, for example, information system of higher education in Croatia. The third service is PUH. It's somehow similar to the service Institute Ruđer Bošković presented, Moj oblak. It's based on the Nextcloud tool, so those of you who are familiar with the Nextcloud or B2Drop from EOSC knows what this service is offering. It offers researchers and lecturers cloud-based storage that can be used through the web interface or through the desktop application or mobile phone, or it could be mounted to your PC or server as remote storage. Currently, it's used by 540 researchers and lecturers, and what is interesting, it's used for 137 projects. One more thing I would like to point out, during the last year we implemented the support for internationalization. We implemented the support for EduGain, so it was obviously that research projects don't allow borders borders between researchers, and we wanted to enable the usage of PUH to researchers that are participating in projects with other researchers from Croatia. So, beside those technical services, during the last years we were very much involved in trainings. We organized more than 50 workshops with a lot of participants. Also with many of colleagues from other institutions, from Croatian Science Foundation or Institute Ruđer Bošković or National Library or, I don't know, University Library of Rijeka. We developed two online courses. It's available through Merlin platform to anybody free of cost, and those courses deal with research data management topics, with DMPs, with documenting and anonymizing research data.
How you measure participants in terabytes? Come on.
We should measure it in kilograms. So it's a copy-paste error. So, as much as I can see, most of you are from Croatia. You probably heard most of what I was, you knew most of what I was talking up until now. And the next two slides will be probably the most interesting to you. It deals with current developments of mentioned systems. So for a few years we are promoting alternative formats to PDF, journal article text suite, XML. The support for this format is very low. There are some tools, but they are very expensive. So we decided to develop a service that could help journal editors to convert Word document to this XML format and to help them to publish in this rather better format than PDF is, because this format makes the document easier for data mining, for conversion to other formats, and for preservation. We had a workshop 2 days ago, and it went very well, and we are planning to have this service available to our community maybe during this summer, and in the long term we would like to also provide this service through the EOSC portal as a service for all European researchers and journal editors. What we did during the last year, we had a lot of communication with Clarivate and Elsevier, because Croatian journal editors were not very happy with the way those databases are indexing the journals. There was many errors, and the index was not accurate. It took a long time from the publishing to indexing. So we had many meetings. I'm sorry, Eva from the association ZNAK is not here with us. She pushed those meetings, and also the National Library participated, and we came to some results, but we are not yet very satisfied. Clarivate developed some solution. They started to automatically fetch data from Hrčak and indexing it in their database. But then they found out some bug in the code on their side, and now they're fixing it. About Elsevier, they implemented the automatic process, and they are now in the phase of testing the solution. So we are expecting in next weeks, months, this will come to life. About the repository platform, we developed the analytics tool. It's, at least as far as I know, somehow innovative, because it provides a solution that could be used by repository managers, researchers, and institution boards to get some insight in the repository content. It provides meaning to build custom reports, not some prepared reports that we think they need, but they can now build the report according to their needs. Okay. As for the next step, in next few days, all the repositories in DABAR should get the support for publishing data management plans. We are coordinating this action with the Croatian Scientific Foundation. We expect it to be ready maybe even tomorrow or during the next week. And a colleague from Croatian Scientific Foundation will tell you more about that in the next presentations. The next thing Mariana mentioned, they are trying to get certificate for across the repository. We have cooperation with the Faculty of Sciences. We are trying to prepare their institutional repository for the Corte-Asil certification. We are in the process of writing the necessary documentation and self-evaluation. So this is something that we are expecting in the next few months. This certification would pave the way for other repositories in DABAR. Of course, in those technical requirements, but then on the other hand, institutions are responsible for those organizational stuff needed by Corte-Asil. During this year, hopefully, we will provide tool on a national level for research software versioning based on GitLab. GitLab is a versioning system used by GitHub, so we will provide this tool on the national level, and we would like to connect it also with repositories in DABAR so that GitLab could be used for versioning and DABAR for preservation and citation. I already mentioned with the PUH that we are going towards support for EduGain, so this is something we would like to also provide for DABAR users. It means that not only users from AAI in Croatian system could log into repositories, but also associates from other countries that are included in EduGain service. This is primarily needed for the Claire and Eric. This is their requirement. And the last thing, we want to integrate our repository system, DABAR, with CRORIS that is being built so that there are no two entry points for data, but once the data, metadata is entered in one or the other system, it's not necessary to make the same thing in the other system. And my last slide, so as for the challenges, there are lots of challenges. Mariana mentioned we also have challenges with IT stuff, but I want to point out here just one thing. When we look at the statistics, 48% of the digital objects in DABAR is open access. So when we built these services for open science, we had some other percentages in mind, and this is lower than we want to have. So is this really as open as possible and as closed as necessary? Probably not. How we are trying to tackle this issue, even mentioned on the policy level. So there is this creation EOSC-a, HR-OOZ. The community has written the draft of open science action plan, so hopefully that will push the open access and open access in the practice. Also, Ivan mentioned one of the outcomes of this initiative should be open science policy template for institutions, and we also hope that those changes will somehow increase the openness of the content of repositories. The other thing, we think there should be more data stewards. Institute Ruđer Bošković showed us their example, their path, but those competencies should be developed on other institutions, and that is a big job in front of all of us to build the support for researchers that they need. And with that, I would conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Draženko. Thank you for your nice presentation, and thank you for explaining us how to measure participants. That was very informative. Next speaker, Bojan Macan, head of the Center for Scientific Information at the Ruđer Bošković Institute. He's engaged in several international projects and very heavily involved in national level on several projects and initiatives that are leading or have led to the building of the already mentioned Croatian National Information System, or CRORIS. So Bojan Macan is also involved in Open Air, and he will tell us something a little bit about Open Air National Open Access Desk and the view on open science in Croatia. So Bojan, please.
Thank you, Slaven, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, I stand here between you and your lunch. Somehow it happens every time, but it's not my fault. I will try to be swift and informative as I can. So I will tell you a little bit about Open Air, our activities, and at the end of the presentation, I will try to give really short overview about the current state of open science in Croatia. It's impossible to do it in just a few minutes, but actually this will be a summary of everything you already heard. So you will see where we are, what we are lacking, and which way should we probably go. So at the beginning, I would like to tell you more about Open Air. What is Open Air? Since 2018, Open Air is a non-profit organization which is established with headquarters in Greece, but virtual office is there. We have 48 members of this non-profit organization, and they come from 34 countries. But Open Air didn't start 2018. It started way before, in 2009. And it started as an European project. And through this project, since 2009 until today, Open Air is developing a series of services for enhancing open science and shifting scholarly communication to openness and transparency by implementing new and advanced ICT technologies, and by developing skills of the people involved in Open Air, and those are actually key people which are disseminated all over Europe to provide support for open science implementation on European level. So this is actually a graphical representation of Open Air services which Open Air is offering to research performance organization in the research life cycle. We can start here. Oh, Lasso is not working. Okay. We can start with Argos. Lovorka and Sanja already mentioned you Argos. Argos is a service which allows researchers to develop their own data management plan, which is machine actionable. We are now working on customization of Argos and its localization to Croatian scientific community, and implementation of Croatian Science Foundation DMP plan as a template in Argos. So this will be one of services which we will offer nationally to our researchers to enhance open science in Croatia. Then we have discovery solutions which are offered by OpenAir. Explore and Connect, through which you can find enormous amount of open access information available through OpenAir services. Amnesia is another solution which allows you to anonymize research data. Then we have Episciences as a tool which allows you to maintain your own Diamond Open Science journal based on the preprints which are archived online. You have Zenodo, which is really well-known repository on a larger scale. Then OpenAir is offering you the possibility to provide services to enhance your open science infrastructure and connect this infrastructure with the EOSC. Further on, one very important service which OpenAir is offering is Monitor. Monitor is actually something that will probably be very well used in the future, because through Monitor, funders or research performing organizations have the possibility to monitor their open science activities. You have the possibility for customization reports, and all is based on the information which are gathered through Explore service, actually through OpenAir large database. OpenAPC is a service for monitoring open APCs, article processing charges. And last but not the least is the service called Open Plateau, which is already in our plans to localize it actually and use it in Croatia. This is based on the Moodle platform. It's a learning environment through which we will offer on a European level, but also on Croatian level, the content for open science training in Croatian language, but also in English for our researchers. This is something that we plan to do during 2023. The Open Plateau is already in production, but we are now at the Ruđer Bošković Institute in the process of creating content, and we will upload those content to Open Plateau. Services are one part of OpenAir activities. The other part are people, NOADs, National Open Access Desks. We have 37 European National Open Access Desks in OpenAir. For Croatia, our NOADs are my colleague Jadranka Stojanovski and myself. And we, as a NOAD, are working on several areas. We are promoting open scholarship, open science. We are outreaching to our key national stakeholders, to policymakers, to research performing organizations, to infrastructure providers. We are also aligning open access and open science policies, and we are, you will hear more about this in next session, where we're working hard on developing national Croatian open science plan, which hopefully will be approved soon by the ministry. We are organizing national trainings regarding open science topics, and we are building the open science infrastructure, and we are helping others who are building their own open science infrastructure to improve this infrastructure and connect it with the European infrastructure and EOSC. But now I will try to summarize where we are currently in Croatia regarding open science. I will go quickly through these 5 topics. Where are we where are we with open science policies, infrastructure, training and education, open access to publications, and research data management. Unfortunately, we are working in Croatia on open science for more than 30 years, but from the policy level, we didn't have almost any support. Open science is not mentioned in the most important documents, or it's only mentioned, but it's not actually a support to open science. That's why through the National Open Science Initiative, HR-OOZ, we started to work on the draft of National Open Science Policy, which is finished, and in probably next week, the Council of HR-OOZ will send this policy to the Ministry for approval. I'm really cheering for the policy to be adopted, because we tried really hard to develop a good policy, and we think that this will be a good start for many other things in Croatia. On institutional level, we also don't have policies, that much policies in place. And those which we do have are usually not so strong policies. And there is usually no monitoring mechanism implemented on the institutional level. We are also trying to work on this part of policies through HR-OOZ, but it's not yet on the agenda. For this, we would like to have the National Open Science policy in place, so we would have a strong point from where we can go to our research performing organizations. Something I didn't mention here, but Antica already mentioned it in the first lecture, is incentives. We are really lacking incentives for open science in Croatia. Our criteria for advancement don't include open science in any way for advancement in careers. And if we will not start to incentivize open science activities, open science will not take roots in our academic community. Antica explained it really well, so I don't have to talk about it. But incentives are somehow connected with policies in my mind, but also with monitoring of those policies which has to be in place. We have a good actual example at the Ruđer Bošković Institute. It's a small incentive. My director is here, and thank you, David, for this. My director is giving annual rewards for best papers written by our scientists. And one of the conditions for a paper to be nominated as a best paper is that this paper has to be archived in our fully repository and available in open access. And when David is announcing, okay, I will give awards for this year, next day we have hundreds of papers in our repository. Before that, nothing happens. But we have an institutional policy, and in this policy it says all the papers have to be archived in the repository, but nobody does it until David gives awards. So, David, please give more awards so we will have more open science. Second point is open science infrastructure in Croatia. Here we are not so bad, but this is because of the community, not because of the policy level thing or the ministry. Because there are plenty of strong sites, institutions which are developing infrastructure in Croatia, and we started to collaborate all together. So we have developed a really good infrastructure. We have good grounds for building open science. So we have repository infrastructure nowadays in Dabar. We have journal platform Hrčak. CRORIS as a national CRIS system is under development. and kreatori will ingest many other information solutions which were developed at, for instance, at the Ruđer Bošković Institute, and Croatian scientific bibliography is one of the most important one. It will become part of kreatori, and the whole point of kreatori is to support open science in Croatia. We have started already with implementation of Argos and national localization of Argos, so we have some infrastructure in place. The other thing is how this infrastructure is used and who is using it and how. Third point is education and training. We, I think about all of us, IT specialists and librarians which are supporting open science in Croatia, we are working very hard on training of researchers, on training of librarians for open science topics, and we are not doing this centralized. We are all collaborating. We have now a strong group in Rijeka, we have a group in Srce, in Zagreb, on many places. So we are trying hard, but it's hard to reach the research community. Antica already asked you how many researchers are here. Very few. And it's hard to get researchers in place to train them. We are trying to do it at our institutional level at the Ruđer Bošković Institute, and we are quite successful there. But on the global level, on the national level, the situation is not that great, but we are trying to do it. The thing is that we are lacking formal education about open science topic. And especially when we start to talk about data stewardship and research data, there's no formal education yet in Croatia, but there's lots of need for that. And third, I already mentioned, we will try to use Open Plato as a platform for better and more quality training on a national level. Fourth point, open access to publications. Where do we stand here? Actually, this is a brighter topic because according to many research, and even by the research conducted by my colleagues Jelka and Lea, which are already also here, Croatia is #1 country or among few best countries in the world according to open access availability of their publications. Today, we don't have exact numbers, but I would say that maybe 85% of everything, research papers published in journals are available in open access in any flavor of open access. The research we conducted in 2019 showed us that that 3/4 of papers indexed in Web of Science core collection authored by Croatian authors were available in open access in any way. And by these 3/4, we were among 2 or 3 the best countries in the world. Nowadays, I would say the situation is even better. It's 5 years later. But again, we have a different thing going on. MDPI and open access publishing has gained a lot of attention in Croatia, and I'm a little bit worried about it, that 1/5 of all papers published by Croatian researchers are today published in MDPI journals. And this is something we have to talk about and we have to think about, because MDPI has great journals, but it has their own disadvantages, and it's very, very worrying that Croatian researchers are publishing very large chunk of their research in only one publisher. And for publishing in DPH journals, you have to pay for APCs. So a lot of money is going to this publisher also for publishing papers. Again, colleague Jelka, Lea, and I did some research and published a paper about it, and we are still working on another paper where we will present our findings in the future. But in general, we have a huge portion of open access publications available in Croatia, and many thanks for that goes to HR-OOZ platform and journals available on HR-OOZ, because more than 500 Croatian journals are available in open access, which is free of charge. You don't have to pay for publishing. And as we know, there are plenty of SSH journals in HR-OOZ, and by the nature of SSH area, those researchers publish in domestic journals. So actually, even in our research, it was clear that almost 100% of Croatian arts and humanities and social sciences papers are available in open access because they mainly publish at home. And last but not the least, research data management. I would say that we are here in a very infancy phase yet. But there are some good steps forward. For instance, Croatian Science Foundation, as the largest Croatian funder, has given us a huge boost by mandating their data management plan. But next level will be mandating archiving of research data in repositories. Then we can go even further. But I would also like to see from the Croatian Science Foundation for mandating open access. Not necessarily open access for which you have to pay to publish, but open access which will mandate you to archive a certain version of paper in a repository. Because Draženko told you, we have DABA repository. We had in mind different percentages of open access publications in DABA, but these are not yet achieved. Less than half of publication in DABA is in open access, which is absurd. And as an even bigger absurd, the majority of documents in DABA are theses, which have to be in open access according to our last law and now the new law for science and higher education. But even when it's mandated that it's in open access, actually it is not. And what is happening? Nothing. What does ministry do? Nothing. What do anyone do? Nothing. So we have to, that's why I want, and I'm looking at Ivan because I have high expectations of Ivan as a chair of HR-OOZ Council to push the Croatian plan for open access toward ministry and to push its adoption, because I would say this is step number one. After that, we will work hard on the institutional level policies, we will work hard on all other segments of implementation of open science, but this is number one, and in this plan we have also written that changes in evaluation of science has to happen, and changes which will take into consideration open science activities. And when this will be achieved, then we will be able to talk about open science in Croatia. Until then, we have just lots of questions. How to do it? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bojan. And now I invite you all for lunch. I know that you are very hungry. So we'll meet here at 3 o'clock precisely, please. Thank you.